Hey, welcome, folks. This is Inside the Leader's Mind, where what's in the way becomes the way. I am your host, David Suson. I am so excited for my guest today, Mary Shank Rockman. She's the CEO and founder of MSR Communications, and they're an award-winning public relations and integrated marketing firm, and they're celebrating 26 years
6 years.
of leadership under her direction.
Thank
And
you.
she has 37 years in the communications industry. And she's known for her strategic counsel, visionary leadership, and ability to guide brands through complex market shifts, especially at the intersection of technology and trust. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. She's a seasoned leader, and she's built people first culture rooted in collaboration, creativity, and adaptability. And her leadership style blends strategic foresight and with empathy, which I want to hear about, empowering teams and clients alike to stay resilient in times of change, which is the biggest. That's the only guarantee we have right now is change,
Right.
especially in today's world. So today she's helping shape the conversation around how AI is impacting leadership in PR and MarTech and championing the responsible adoption of emerging technologies while maintaining the human elements that build reputation, credibility, and lasting influence. Mary's frequently sought after for her insight into authentic leadership, communication strategy, and how to future proof teams and messaging in an AI driven world. Please welcome Mary Shank Rockman.
Well, thank you, David. That was a lovely introduction. I'm really grateful, and I'm very excited to be here today. Looking forward to
Well,
the conversation.
I'm so excited to have you. I just think, the insights that you have having done what you do, PR communication in that world and dealing with brands and change over time, to me is fascinating. Before I jump into that, tell me just kind of a quick snapshot, a brief snapshot, how you got to where you are today.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's been a long career and an exciting one. I jumped in head first to technology, not really knowing much about it, and that was long time ago, 1988, and just was very fascinated by it growing up in the Bay Area and watching Silicon Valley grow around us. It was just intriguing. So I started to cut my teeth on tech in the advertising world, and about a year into it, I was contacted by a company that was one of Apple's first developers of peripheral devices, and they wanted to know if I'd be interested in the marketing team. And I was so excited and jumped into that opportunity. And through that, I learned how to do PR, which became my love and my passion. And so just really took advantage of the opportunity to learn tech from kind of the basics, right? And then also how to apply PR into the discipline of marketing. And so it was very early stage for high tech PR at that time in the late 80s. And I learned a lot of things. And the most important was that relationships really are critical, and that still stands today. So I took that experience, starting the PR department at Kensington, and moved on to Ketchum Communications. I felt like I really needed some big agency experience where they worked with larger tech companies. And I was able to work closely with the HP team, the LaserJet team, which was really exciting, and did some really fun work with the Dockers team, which was on the creative side of the house, and to help them with their first launch of a website, which was really exciting.
Did
And
you say
then
Dockers?
Dockers, Levi's
Like
Dockers.
the pants, the
The
clothes?
pants, they were getting into tech for the first time, and I remember the headline of the press release was, "The website is going to be as cool and comfortable as your favorite pair of Dockers jeans." So
Funny.
that was actually really fun, and then moving from there, I wanted to really get some big company experience, and I was recruited to head up PR for the database division of Sybase. And Sybase was at the time one of the top 10 technology companies in the world, a multi-billion-dollar company, and I was there for 4 years, and I rose through the ranks, becoming the youngest female director on the executive team, and a variety of crises that unfortunately unfolded while I was there, but fortunately for my career, because I really learned how to manage crises properly, how to address different audiences, some that have a very specific financial interest in the company, namely the shareholders and the board, and of course, CalPERG and many of the other institutionals. So it was an incredible experience. And then I decided I thought I might try and have a family. And so I thought, well, gee, I'll open my own firm. What could be worse than that? And it turned out to be both a struggle to have children as well as to, run my own business at the same time. So I developed a really terrific staff and I hired very senior people. That's always been my philosophy. When I was at Sybase, my team was agency team was made up of very senior individuals, and I really appreciated that. They had the foresight and the experience behind them to help guide us whenever we needed it and to jump in when we needed it. So I took that approach and applied it to my firm when I decided to hang a shingle. It was me initially by myself with one assistant sitting in my pajamas in the living room at my house. And then we moved into another location in San Francisco and then another location after that, and was there for 17 years until the pandemic. And now we work remotely across the country, and the team and I have been servicing all types of clients in the tech space and the consumer lifestyle space. We have a lot in healthcare and wellness and sports and fitness too. So we have a variety of clients that we just absolutely love. And it makes coming to work every day a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh. Major brands though early on in the
Early
tech
on.
world. I mean, that's crazy. And so why did you so I know you said you wanted to have a family,
Right.
but that's a big deal to start your own business.
Right.
What were you thinking? I mean, I
I'm
know
not
you said
sure.
I know
Um,
the
no,
comment you made is,
you
what
know,
could go wrong, but
I've never been afraid of a challenge, and I actually love problem solving. So for me, it was an opportunity to try something new and to believe in myself enough to say, hey, can I make this work? And before I knew it, I went from one client to six, and I needed to hire a team. I think initially I thought, well, I'll either go be a really senior in house person or I will just be a consultant. Well, I had trouble saying no to some friends that were in the dot-com world, as well as others that were in the enterprise space that needed help, and they needed senior counsel, which is one of the reasons why I started the firm and really focused on hiring very talented people that had been in the business a long time. So I figured it'd be easier to have a family if I was running on my own schedule. But on the other side of things, your clients really are your schedule. So that was a lot easier said than done. But I also have a father who is an entrepreneur and started a fitness business back when nobody really even understood what that meant back in the 70s, and raised all the money on his own and developed the facility on his own, and then brought in a partner, my uncle, and the rest was history. They're still around 50 years later. So he was a great role model, really demonstrated to me that if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. And also just tenacity and hard work really pay off. So I think
absolutely.
that was a great way to grow up and see, the blood, sweat, and tears that go into something that you've created yourself.
And do you think that entrepreneurship kind of gets in your blood
It
when
is.
you
Yeah, for sure. I think so.
I think I see that. It's interesting. I think I shared this with you that I grew up, my dad had a fried chicken business
Right.
before I
You
was
mentioned
born,
that.
and then he had a printing business, and then after he passed, my mom took over, but I did that corporate life, the same type of thing you did,
Yeah.
but I think I was always being pulled in the direction of, wanting to do my own thing because you're around it. And the question I have is, as you did this, it was fascinating to hear what you said is, you hired senior people. How did you you come across to me as an achiever, or you wouldn't be where you are, and hard work and discipline. But I think it's the hardest thing for business owners or executives or senior to let go enough
Yeah,
to let other people, give them enough rope. Because
yeah,
I just had this conversation earlier today where we were talking about, one of the biggest challenges that a lot of CEOs, and in this case, actually, it was women CEOs, and I don't think it's
yes,
just women, but it was this idea of how do I not be in the business and I work on the business, right? Work in the business, work on it,
yeah,
and let go when it's me. I am the brand.
right.
It's your initials on
My
the
name on the
business.
door, right.
Yeah. How did you do that? Or how does an executive talk
Yeah,
for
it
yourself
is
first?
really one of the toughest things to accomplish, and I work on it still every day because I'm the one at midnight proofing everything just to make sure it's perfect all these years later. But I will tell you the sense of ownership is extraordinary when it's not about me and it's about the team. So, I took that to heart very early on in that yes, I am going to have to pass the baton at some point to begin trusting everyone so that they do feel empowered. You have to empower your team. So let them try. Why not? And I'm of the philosophy that nobody fails. We make mistakes, and those are learning lessons, and that's okay, right? But if you don't try, how will you know? So at one point, I just somehow it just felt like the business was moving smoothly, and my clients were comfortable enough with me working closely with both my team member and myself that I started kind of slowly but surely passing more responsibility to each of my leaders and allowing them to show what they've got. And I know I've hired smart people and I know I've created a team of talented individuals. And yes, it may be my initials on the door, but ultimately, there's no I in team. It's all about the comprehensive result that we provide or we deliver to a client. And so not everybody can do every single thing. We have experts who just focus on media, writing, data. I focus mainly on strategy and then I review the writing and the data just to make sure. But I've given up so much of that day to day so that I can free up and be available to clients at a moment's notice when they need strategy, or so that I can go see my son swim in his championships, right? So it's that balance of understanding, at what point do I let go and give my team a chance, and if they prove themselves, which I, of course, have every, expectation that they will, then why not let them take the ball? And if they will still come to me if they have questions or if they think that, there's something they'd like to add or that, I need to add or what have you, and in most cases, the clients see all of us all the time, so they're comfortable with that.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
And I know in the introduction, one of the things you said that we talked about in the introduction is that you built a people first
Yeah.
culture. Is this part of that, or how would
Yes,
you describe people first? What would you,
definitely.
or is
So,
that what you meant?
yeah, that's part of what I meant, and I also, having been on the corporate side for so long and really kind of being, chewed up and spit out with the number of difficult situations that I had to manage, I finally said, we have to respect people's time and their lives. They have lives outside of the company. And just because they're not there till midnight does not mean that they aren't as dedicated and they aren't going to produce. I want people to come to work at a reasonable hour, typically 8:30, and leave the office at a reasonable hour unless we have an emergency, and we haven't had one in a long time, so that's wonderful. But the job needs to be done, and I have to trust that it will be. And so if they come in at 8:30 and they leave at 5, fantastic. It means they've gotten their job done. So there's a level setting that goes on that says, I am comfortable being flexible with you if I can trust that you will get the job done. We have these deliverables with those dates. as long as that is getting done, then I'm comfortable with you taking that time from, say 5 o'clock at night until 8:30 the next morning to enjoy your life. And I'll tell you, over the last 26 years, one of the things that most of my employees say to me is that I trust them and they feel heard and seen such that they can come back the next day and produce the way that they had the day before. So I really I'm honored that people see that. It is critical to me because I know being a mom of two and I have a dog and a couple of homes and I'm busy. I understand that I need my life outside of the company to also come back the next day refreshed with new ideas and ready to go. So that's part of it. And then the other part is this idea that they will, as they continue to grow and demonstrate their abilities, they will have more responsibility and that will make them feel empowered. So I think that's the other side of it. And then last, it's, if they need to take a break, they need to take a break. And I want to be supportive of that. Family always comes first, your health and your family. We can't get any of those things back along with time if we don't honor them. And so those are two of my real strong pillars. You have to look after your family and your health. And if something comes up, then you need to pay attention to that and we'll find a workaround. And it's all within reason, of course, but it makes people feel good. It makes them understand that I care about them and their success. So luckily I have really long-term staff, tenure. I have one gal who's worked for me for almost 19 years. It'll be 19 in March. And my average staff tenure currently is 6 years. So people stay with the firm for a long time, and there's a reason for that. I trust them, and I appreciate that they have lives outside of MSR.
Do you think because of the way you lead, and it's very empathetic to the approach that you describe even, do you think because of the way you lead that they actually are more committed, higher morale, greater engagement?
Definitely.
Or okay.
Yes. And I'm an ENTJ, right? And so I am, the details are important to me and the analysis is important to me. So they know that, right? So we have to get our jobs done to the highest level that we possibly can so that our clients will continue to be clients of ours and will continue to award us with, a new contract the following year or with an increased budget or whatever that may be, that we're demonstrating that value every day. And so I do believe that when people feel trusted and they feel heard and they know that you are empathetic without taking advantage, because I've seen that too, but within reason, they will perform better and they will be more honest about what they're concerned about or what they are contemplating. There's no problem for them to come to me and talk about anything. And so I believe that really does create stronger teams. People feel more supported, they feel more heard, um, and it just leads to better results.
So, I travel all over the world and I
Yeah.
speak on this. I meet thousands of leaders, and what many would say is that this can't work.
Right. Oh, I
That
was
style
once
of
told I
leadership.
was too idealistic by
So
another
so
agency
what
CEO. Yeah,
right. And it's like, "Oh, you can't be that way, and you gotta, manage with an iron fist." And,
yeah.
what would you say to these people that think it it can't work this way? It do you what's your thought on this?
So I say a couple of things. First is we're not curing cancer, and having had cancer, I'm glad that we're not the ones curing it, or trying. But the world doesn't stop if in fact, we've not delivered something because we've run into a situation that we couldn't have avoided, or there's, something that's not perfect even though I'm a total perfectionist, and I will admit to that, but sometimes to my own detriment. Uh, but if you have a goal in mind and you know what you're trying to achieve for the client, you work toward getting that goal met. And we may not be the largest agency on the planet, and that's by choice. I could have sold us, I could have made us 10 times bigger, but I value people's lives, their careers, and their choices that they make. And so we are a great agency because we have so much pride in what it is that we do, and we deliver the results that the clients are looking for. And we also put that into their client agency agreements. We will pursue this type of opportunity. We will secure this type of opportunity. We will, whatever those activities are that we've agreed to, that goes right into their contract. So we know what they're expecting of us as far as KPIs go. And when people know what the goals are and what we're trying to achieve, they work toward those goals, and everything else is, icing on the cake, which we deliver also. But it's really, these are the baseline. This is the minimum that someone can expect. Let's achieve over that. Let's overachieve. And we constantly do. I mean, granted, no one's perfect, and there have been situations where, it's just been really tough. But in most cases, we meet those needs and the expectations of the client. And if we don't, we sit down with them and say, what can we do differently? We just have to be really straightforward and honest. And I think that gives people a lot of empowerment. That empowers them. That makes them feel like I can make a difference. I can deliver, and those results mean something. So if you value results and you value your team's privacy and livelihood and their career, it can make a good solution.
You almost, in a way, you can have it all.
Yeah.
And the reality is, the people that think you can't have it, I don't think they've tried it. Why do you think? Why do
Mhm.
you? And I know I don't. It's hard to predict what other people what they're
Sure.
thinking.
Yeah.
Why do you think other people in leadership roles in any size company, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, why do you think they resist so much creating a culture and an environment like you have created? Why? What do you think holds them back? Because they could look at you and then they can say, "Oh my gosh, I want what she has. I want longevity. I want engagement. I want results." That's what they want. Why wouldn't they just copy what you're? What do you think holds them back from changing?
I think, I mean, I know, having worked for corporate side, agency side, I've had the best and the worst of managers, and those that typically manage with an iron fist are either not 100% confident in their own abilities, and they are more concerned about how everything reflects on them personally versus the overall organization. I also think that it comes from the top, or I know it comes from the top. So if you have somebody from the top who is saying, we value you, we want to empower you, these are your goals, you must meet those goals, and I'm going to trust that you will meet these goals. Please come to me if you have questions, if there's a concern, and if there's anything I can do to help you, then that employee is going to walk up and go, wow, I, I can, I can make a difference. I can actually deliver the results that my clients expect. So I think there's a lot of fear that if you don't make your number, or if you don't, if you don't micromanage someone to make sure they're doing every single thing that you want them to do, it's not going to happen. And I just don't believe in that, because the times when I was micromanaged and felt smothered, it didn't make me wanna work harder. It didn't wanna make me it lit a fire under me for sure, but it made me resentful. It made me feel like, "Why am I not being trusted to get my job done? I'm great at what I do." And in I think that's where it comes from, like, it's the individual that is leading the ship. If they can't demonstrate that they have empathy for individuals, and they're empowering them, and they're hearing and valuing them, then, they're that's their problem, right? It
Yeah,
really is.
It's amazing. I mean, so much of the work that I do is around this arena because I think ego perception, right? How we see the world and our
You
ego
just said it.
and
You said it and I
y-
didn't, but I was going to make a comment.
you
Ego gets
know,
in
and
the
it's
way of
yeah,
success.
it gets in the way
That's what
and
I've said forever. Yeah,
I think people are afraid that
yep,
letting go is an impact on their ego of,
absolutely.
how great I am and how smart I
Right,
am and how right I am
right.
and I think they what's fascinating is that they don't reframe it as they think I'm giving in, and you're really not giving in. It's refining. If you
Yes,
look at sports, right?
right,
You know, in sports, you go, well, this doesn't work right. Let's refine it.
right.
You shift gears, but for some reason in
Yeah,
leadership, they it's definition of insanity. They do the same thing over and over and they get the same results and they're wondering why. Like,
right. They can't
try
hire,
something
they can't
different.
keep employees, there's no retention, right? Yeah, agreed.
It's
And I
fascinating.
mean, I've seen so many different types of leaders, and I had, a mentor at Sybase, Mitchell Kurtzman, who was one of my favorite people. He, went off to do a startup after Sybase, and then he went to, Hummer Winblad Venture Capital, and so he and I have kept in touch all through my career. He was my very first reference when I opened my firm. And he was so warm with me. He was so engaging and he remembered things. He remembered my twin sister's name. He remembered, my husband's name and asked about my children when they were born. I mean, there were little details about him and he was this big power figure, but he took me under his wing and he made time for me and he would listen to me and he would show concern, and, that to me was a great role model. You
So
Yeah,
as an employee at the
yeah.
time, what did that do for you as an employee? Your performance, your attitude, your et cetera.
It made me proud. I was proud to represent a company whose CEO was that human. Right? And that made me want to ensure, especially from a PR perspective, that I could turn that reputation around for that company. And I did. In about 18 months, I was able to get that reputation turned around because when I joined the company, they had just gone through this massive product failure, and that was a failure. It went out, and it was a massive crisis. And all of a sudden, this database darling was being questioned. And
Mm.
when I came in, I was dealing with all the negativity because I had only seen it when it was positive in the press, but literally a couple weeks before, they had this major malfunction. And so, I spent a year and a half cleaning that up, right? Of showing the benefits, of demonstrating why this was a sound company and, you know, making sure that the reporters who were really true influencers in that media infrastructure had access to our executives, were able to learn from them. And, it wasn't always easy. It was difficult. And by my, 13th boss later, I decided it was time to do my own thing. But what I gleaned from that was just there were several role models there that I just thought absolutely managed with their hearts and their heads. And there is a way to do both. There were also those that did not. And I've seen that throughout my career, the iron fist or the micromanaging or the cold. That was one reason why I got out of corporate. I did not want to become a cold corporate fish. And a lot of women, in order to keep up with the men in the boardroom, operate that way. So they won't be seen as emotional or they won't be seen as too empathetic. Um, and I think that's where women have challenges, right?
It's really tough, yeah.
And that's a whole nother situation. But, to be taken seriously and to really understand the role, your important, your value you bring to your role, when someone acknowledges that on a regular basis and talks through issues with you and things that are really important to you and the role, I think that's the way it should be, right? That should be someone who really does care about their people. And when you are cared for like that, you will end up feeling more pride. You will feel better about your job. You'll feel better about coming to work every day. When it's the opposite, I've been there. It does not happen.
What do you see? as you look at 20, 30 years doing this, and as a leader,
Yeah.
what do you see as the biggest challenge? Let's speak for you
Sure.
personally in your world,
Yeah.
and then kind of outside of your world. What do you see as the biggest challenge? Because people have changed, life is
Yeah.
changing,
Life
right?
has changed.
Things are moving faster, technology,
Yeah.
AI, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But just as a leader running the business, managing people, what's the biggest challenge you see
I
now
think the
for
biggest
you?
challenge is for me is when we're going after new business, the world has changed so much. And so because there's so many choices and people are finicky, they're not as loyal as they used to be because of the pandemic. You could get on a Zoom with somebody, talk to them for 5 minutes, think it's the greatest conversation ever, never hear back from them. Right. And that kind of thing, I think in this new reality, the personal has definitely changed. It that if you are meeting with someone and they want you to say send a proposal or do a demo or something, they think nothing of not showing up to that next call or not being honest about where they stand. We don't have our investments yet, right? So things like that, whereby when we used to meet in person, it would be a handshake, right? And people took that seriously. But now we're on Zoom or now we're on a conference call. And there's not the same level of personal commitment that used to exist. And that's surprising to me. And it's disappointing because, we've always really, we've trusted our network, which always have been wonderful and still is. But in the new world of there's so many opportunities out there, people just have lost their manners. I mean, I hate to say that, but it's true. It's like they've lost their manners and, um, don't put themselves in other people's shoes. So I think that's a struggle right now is just overcoming these people that ask you for something and you deliver that and then you don't hear from them or they don't, they just aren't entirely honest about where they are in their own process, right? Where the company's
So,
process.
do you think, you talk quite a bit about kind of because you're in the tech world, AI
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think there's going to be a connection between what's happening with AI and the speed of change and that whole, I don't want to say manners,
The dynamic.
but that dynamic, do you
Yeah.
think that's going to change employees' leadership mentality around people and how employees are going to be? Do you see a connection there?
It's interesting you should say that. And that was the reason why I was bringing that last subject up, is because not only does it seem like people have kind of lost their concern for others because of this, world of us, we're on Zoom, we don't ever have to see them again. We're not going to run into them at the store or whatever. Um, I think now with AI and using it to transform various businesses and industries, it could potentially be a big challenge when it comes to relationships. And again, relationships are everything on every side of every business. AI cannot replace a human relationship. I mean, I know Sam Altman and company are struggling with some lawsuit about somebody who took their AI agent much too seriously and exploited and things like that. But that cannot replace a human. And so, as much as we absolutely champion AI and how it's transforming specific industries, it's it is always going to require a human for oversight because it's not perfect, right? And it's a long way from being perfect. And so, with that, I also think as people say, well, gee, it's not as important because any person could do that with an AI engine. Um, y- that's not necessarily true, right? You can't just hand off this really valuable work without having some connection from a human. And the same thing goes for relationships. Sure, son you could put together a media list and have AI send it to all the reporters you want, but those reporters aren't they're gonna, first of all, recognize it's AI, but secondly, they're gonna want that interaction, and an AI engine doesn't know how. I mean, there are plenty that are becoming very human-like, but it's never going to replace the individual, and so I think if leaders start thinking that way, here's how we train our employees to get the best use out of AI and still look at their value, the skills that they've had to learn in order to do it properly or to be able to make a difference. Those are going to still be key things, right? And so that connection to the human 100% has to be there. So I whether or not it's going to completely change the value that an employee brings is still, I think, to be seen. I don't think we're there yet, but I do think at this point, at least for the foreseeable future, you have to have that human engagement. And so employees who know how to use AI to the advantage of the organization are going to be really valuable. And so that communication and that authentic meeting between the two are still going to be relevant. So I hope it doesn't change too
Have
much.
you, in the work you do, right, in PR, Marcom, stuff like that, have you had, as you're working with clients, have you had to yet adjust language terminology and the way you approach, leaders and their
Yeah.
approach to the market because of this issue? Has there been
Yeah.
needed to be a change yet?
Well, it's really interesting. I have noticed there are one client, well, two clients in particular I can think of are using AI to write their white papers or their, anything for like, we got a contributed article the other day that one of our clients had written and said, "Oh, I'm ready for this to go into such and such outlet." And we took a look at it and went, this isn't your voice. This is all AI. Well, yeah, you can train it to your voice, but this doesn't sound like a human wrote this. So we went back and rewrote the whole thing because it was important to us. We know that media outlet would have turned it away. So that for us was a little concerning. And then we have another one that was just putting all the web copy that I had created for a client through an AI engine and changing everything. And I said, that's AI generated. Everybody will know that. We need to rewrite it so that it's authentic and it has a human voice. So those have been some interesting situations. And yes, that took them 10 minutes, right? May take me 5 hours, but it's authentic, and I know how people speak to one another, and I know what the issues are, and from a research perspective, AI has changed my world for the better, right? If I'm evaluating a new business prospect or I'm looking at a competitor's products for a client and trying to figure out how we differentiate them in the industry, that research is invaluable. So that time that it takes, if you can do that in 10 minutes or 5 minutes or even a minute, understanding the value prop and the differentiation and all of those things in just a few minutes, that's huge. And so that's how we can use it to our advantage for sure and saves me hours of research. So and my team hours of research. We have a question we put in. We always have to check to make sure the information we're getting is accurate. But beyond that, it's really useful. So, I think that that's
Yeah,
where it really helps anyone who has to do any kind of research.
that's gonna, we talk about a lot in AI is gonna change the landscape a lot. And I think leaders are going to have to find a way to figure out and navigate that change
Yeah, 100%.
because
Yeah,
how employees show up, how people
yes,
show up. My concern, kind of along the lines to off what you said, is um, my concern is that we start dehumanizing a little too much employees
yes,
because of AI, and I
yes.
think we have to be careful as leaders.
I think so
So
too. And I think that also gets to understanding the strength of the individual and where they have strengths within their job and where those can be applied to an organization, right? So understanding that employee, how they work, and the product delivery that they bring is critical. That's going to remain most important for leaders today.
But that assumes that they're talking to their
That's
employees and
exactly
they're
right.
building a connection and a
That's
relationship
exactly right.
like you
Yes.
had where he
Yep.
asked about your life and you do
Yep.
that with your and it's I think it becomes critical.
It
So,
does. Yeah, I
yeah.
think more than ever. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just because of time,
Yeah.
I want to wrap with one last question
Sure.
here, and I want you to think about what is a question you wish people would ask you, but they don't know to ask you.
I know you've asked me this, and it's a really tricky one. I even asked my sons what they would ask if they had a choice, and they said, "Well, we're all so close, Mom. We know a lot about you." um, I, you know, I think people always assume because I'm an identical twin that they know both my sister and me, but we are actually extremely different, and the yin and the yang, I think. And so I'm always curious when people ask about, well, I'm sure you're like this because you've got your sister. No, I think when it comes to asking me questions, it should be directed at me, right? So I'm talking about from a social perspective. So that's the one area that I could see being a question I'd love to be asked is what do you think as an individual, not as an identical twin? So that's one. From a work and leadership perspective, I do think it's important for women to continue to support one another. And you see men in the boardroom and not and women having to conform to a certain way. And I think it'd be interesting to answer some questions about that because you can be firm and you can be smart and you can also have a little emotion and still get things done. So maybe that's a question is, how can you do that more effectively without, bringing in all the criticism that women typically face when they're in a boardroom? So,
Do you have a quick answer?
I,
How
yeah,
do
I mean,
people navigate
y-
the women that do it really well? How do they do it? What's the secret?
they are firm, but they're friendly. So the firm and cold fish are not as well respected. And even though people would say, well, we don't want the emotional in the boardroom, they do want firm and friendly, right? And they feel more comfortable and less threatened by that.
Yeah, this may be a topic for
I think it is. I think
another
it
meeting
is.
because I love this. There's women I know who have been phenomenal at at doing both, and they're
Yeah.
so well respected.
Right.
And then there's a number of them that struggle with it, and really figuring out the secret sauce. I would love to.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something we delve into another
Maybe we
time.
delve into
So.
that later. Yeah. I think
So,
it's a great
so if
conversation.
someone wants to learn more about your business or you, what's the best way for them to
Oh, thank you.
learn more?
MSRcommunications.com. That's Mary Shank Rockman, communications.com. So MSR, not very original, communications.com. And then I have a LinkedIn profile and it's Mary Shank Rockman. So LinkedIn/Mary Shank Rockman.
And in the show notes, I'll make sure I put a link to both of those. If
Thank
people
you.
want to reach out, they want to connect with you. Well, Mary, it has been
Thank you,
such a
David.
pleasure. I wish we had more time.
Same. Thank you
Uh,
so much. I really appreciate it.
I may have to extend these podcasts because we get into such fascinating stuff, and
I really do.
I would love to go deeper. But for now, thank you so much for being with
Thank
me. I appreciate
you.
you.
Thank you so much for
So.
having me. This is such a pleasure, and I've really enjoyed getting to speak with you. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, folks, thank you so much for listening. This is Inside the Leader's Mind, and I'm David Susan, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you. That was great.